In the previous video we had seen how we could reduce friction, but in this video we'll look at the ways in which we increase friction. So why do we want to increase friction? Well, for example, while stopping, we just saw in the previous video, if we have a slippery road like this, a slippery surface where we have where we do not have enough friction, we want to increase the friction. So obviously the road is not in our hands, we cannot do anything to the road because the road depends on the natural conditions and how it is. But what we can do is we can make the tires more rough, and so you can see that the tires have these projections and that make the tire rough, and so these projections actually help in the interlocking mechanism, and that is the way that is why these tires have this tread and all these projections. They help in gripping the ground and interlocking, and that is how the tire is able to use friction to stop itself. So that is one very common way of increasing friction. The other way, which you might have seen during winters when it snows, is that people throw sand on ice. So if you have ice, so ice is very smooth, right? So cars have a difficult time using the brakes on ice, because even though their tires have these projections, but because ice is very smooth, it is not so easy to stop on ice because the friction is very low. So to increase friction, people throw some sand on the surface. So what sand does is it makes the surface irregular, because sand particles are themselves very irregular. So we'll see the mechanism on the using a diagram also in some time, but the basic idea behind that is sand makes the surface irregular, and that increases friction, and that way we are able to stop the cars by increasing friction using sand. So yeah, those are the two basic, very simple, common methods of increasing friction. We'll quickly just have a look at them. So whenever we throw sand on ice, so let's say this is ice which is very smooth, it has very little so this is the surface of ice, and let's say this is your car here, or I'll just draw it bigger. So let's say this is the car tire, and obviously the car tire has some irregularities, so I'll just make those irregularities here, right? So this is the surface of the car's tire, and this is this ice, the surface of the ice. So the surface of ice is very smooth. So when you throw sand on top of this, because sand has quite large particle size unlike the carom powder, so you might be confused between sand and carom powder. So the difference between the two is the particles of the carom powder are very small and they can fit into the grooves and fill them up, but sand particles on the other hand are much larger, and so what they do not fit into the grooves and they sit on top of this ice just like this. I'm just exaggerating those pieces. So, and they make the surface rough. Now if you take your tire, the irregularities on the tire surface can interlock with these sand particles just like this, and your car can easily move, and you've essentially increased friction. So that is how simply we can increase friction, by throwing sand or making your surface rough, which we just saw in the case of tires, is just by adding the tread on the tire or those projections that you just saw. So that's it for this video.